All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Difficult Conversations by Supply the Why. I'm Dean. I'll be your host and your guide tonight. And tonight we got a very interesting show. We're going to take a peek behind the curtain of one of the most nightmarish scenarios for any working police officer is how you deal with an issue in which you have to take the ultimate action against somebody and take a life in the line of duty. We'll be joined by recently retired Sergeant John Kalagher. So I'm going to go ahead and bring John up. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Dean. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to have you on the show and to have you share this experience. This is not the type of experience that people hear about very often. And there's a lot of weird myths and just untruths about the mindset of a police officer if and when they actually have to take a life in the line of duty. And it's important that we dispel some of those rumors and we talk about the human side of having to take a decisive action like that tonight.
Absolutely, bro. And that's why I'm happy to be here to share the experience. The good, the bad, the details, the aftermath. I mean, there's a lot to it, and I'm happy to take any questions you have or anybody listening has.
Well, before we get started, let's talk about something pleasant. You're recently retired. How long have you been retired?
It's been just over 2 months. It's not what I expected. I don't recommend it because it's like waking up a Saturday every day. You know, you don't have to go to work nights, weekends, holidays anymore. No more snowstorms. No being forced over 16-hour shifts. No more dealing with some of the difficult issues that we deal with. But no, it's been amazing. And I would just say that on a personal note, my mom's been in hospice care for 3 months, and it's given me a great opportunity to be able to be there for her and help her in her final days. So for that reason, the timing was perfect.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your mother. I've been there. Obviously, once you get to the hospice step, there's usually no coming back from that. And I really appreciate you understanding the gravity of the situation, and I'm happy that you're able to be there during these difficult times, John. It's so important, and you'll feel good about it when time moves on.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for your words.
All right, so let's talk about your situation. So tell us what happened, where you work, and walk us through the day, John, if you could.
So Dean, I retired from Westboro. It's where I started my career when I was 19 years old as a part-timer. I got hired 9 months later. Again, dream job. I had that dream as a young boy. And at 20 years old, that opportunity came true in my hometown. Spent 6 years in patrol. Spent 3 years working undercover, one with the state police, buying narcotics all over the state. I went back to patrol for a couple of years, got promoted to sergeant, and had that rank for the last 21 years of my career. I had a 4-year stint in the DB as a detective sergeant, and my career ended 3 years working with the DEA, again, in an undercover capacity. And ironically, Dean, as I told you before, I was primarily in plain clothes my last 3 months. And that Friday, November 15, 2019, I got called back to work a uniform day shift because it was just a situation they needed me. So it wasn't even a scheduled shift.
So it was an overtime shift, right, essentially?
It was just a shift that I would have been assigned to DEA. Again, I was up there full time, but they said, hey, if they can free you up for the day, we really could use you. And I said, yeah, they were good enough to do that. And so, I would have been with them. But ironically, I got sent back to my hometown to help out the hometown crowd. Understood.
So you're back, you're working this shift, and let's face it, there's definitely an adjustment. People think that, that all cop jobs are the same. It's just like any other business, like different aspects of a business. It requires you to kind of get your sea legs underneath you again and get used to being out there again. So walk us through the beginning of the shift. You start with a roll call, yes?
Started with a roll call, yeah. And Dean, and just to preface, so the 2 weeks before with DEA, we were doing what was called a surge across the country, and a lot of agencies were wrapping up a number of major cases. So we were doing search warrants and taking people off. In fact, the night before, we had taken someone off in Worcester. They tried to run. It was a hectic situation. We had to, make a forcible entry in an apartment, doing a search warrant until 11 o'clock at night. And then the next day I'm saying I'm going to work a day shift, my hometown. It was a beautiful Friday. I get to see everybody in uniform. And I came in like I do every single day. I come in, I would square my boots away so they were polished, strap the vest on, put the belt on. And when I did, my mindset throughout my career, when I did those things, it was like I came to work, it was business. I came into professional mode. But roll call is usually loose with me, cover the major things, but keep it on a friendly level, kind of give everybody their assignment and go out. Again, on a Friday afternoon, I was going to see different people I hadn't seen, stop in and get breakfast at my favorite place, and just make a few stops and see people I hadn't seen in quite some time in uniform.
So you're on your way. All right. You have this mental checklist like we all do. Again, I don't run shifts very often either. I am administrative now, but every once in a while I'll work a patrol shift and same thing, like you have your roll call and you're thinking about, you have a plan in your head as to what you want to do and people you want to see. When did that go off the rails?
So Dean, the call comes in. So I can tell you again, and I've mentioned to you prior to doing this webcast tonight, that I think about this incident every single day, and I don't necessarily mean it in a bad way, but it's just because of the seriousness of it. I think that's just what it's going to be throughout my life. But it's about 12:05, 12:10 on a beautiful Friday afternoon in Westboro, upper middle class town, low crime. Fortunately, our guys and gals do a great job. I was actually going to stop into a jeweler. I was having a problem with my watch. I was going to have him check out my watch. I was in Westboro Shopping Center at 33 Lyman Street. I'm driving by Home Goods. I know exactly where I was. As I talk, I can envision exactly where I was. The radio cackles, which is normal during the day. 2 other units were called, and the call came in as a report of a woman that was stabbed in the arm by her husband.
All right, so you hear that over the radio. Obviously, you're going from community policing, hello, kissing baby, shaking hands mode to now you're transitioning into your warrior mindset. Talk us through that a little bit. So, when things come over like that, Dean, I think it's because of many years of experience. At that time, I had 31 years. I've had a lot of experience. I've handled a lot of serious calls. And again, I always go in with the same mindset, a mindset that was instilled in me in the police academy or in any trainings I've ever had, mental preparedness. There's no call that shakes me up over the air, and I'm not Superman. It's just the way I prepared myself mentally. And when I heard that call, like any other serious call, which we get infrequently, I said to myself, is there something else that's happening? Maybe it was an accident. And within seconds, it was that sixth sense as a seasoned police officer. And I said, it's not. This guy's trying to kill her. And I immediately turned on my lights and siren. I waited for the 2 initial officers to receive the call and say that they were en route. And then I jumped on the air to say my call number was 147. I'm like, 147's en route. So you pull up on scene. What kind of setting was this in? Paint the picture for those of us that aren't familiar with this. Was this a residential neighborhood? Was it a desolate area? Was it was densely populated as it can be in a place like Westboro? Talk us through the neighborhood.
So the call was in an apartment complex, and it was probably, I would say, about 1.5 miles away from where I received the call. And people asked me, how quick did you respond? I went as fast as I possibly could in a safe way. I was going as fast as I could to get there. I was there in a short amount of time, maybe a minute. And as I got there, I wanted to, again, people have asked me, over the past 1.5 years, were you nervous? What was going on? And all I say to them is, and I think in any of those calls, and I think most police officers, your senses are heightened. You're listening, seeing. Your mind is just rapidly processing information. So no, I was not nervous. It was just, I'm sure there's, the adrenaline's going. You just want to get there, and then you want to assess the situation and do whatever's called for to bring this situation to a positive resolution. And I remember arriving, and I remember calling my station saying, W, I'm at the complex. Is he still in the area?
And just for clarification purposes, W is what you call your dispatch center?
That's the communication center, yes.
Okay, all right. So,
And they answered right back. They gave me an update. They said he was initially, there was an initial attack of the suspect on the victim, a knife attack where he had stabbed her. She, at some point, I think, created a ruse and was able to escape him to a neighbor's apartment in a very, multiple unit complex, hundreds and hundreds of units. And all they said to me was he was at the front door of the neighbor's apartment that she had escaped to, and he was naked. So, to me, in my mind, I said, it should be pretty easy to find once I find that apartment if I see a naked guy standing in front of the door.
Yeah, you would think so. But, obviously that adds another layer to the cake as well. You have this rapidly devolving situation, and then you add in the no clothes factor as well. And then, and just to paint a picture for those of you that aren't in this line of work, that is usually a sign that there's something else going on beyond just somebody being angry, but be it some sort of substance abuse or some sort of mental health type scenario as well. Would you agree?
Dean, completely agree. And another thing I want to try to paint a picture. This is a complex like many. I grew up in Westboro. I worked there my whole career. I'm very familiar with, almost every aspect of the town. It's a complex I had been to many, many times over the years, both socially with friends and professionally for more mundane calls, domestics, noise complaints, things like that. And like a lot of apartment complex, and again, for any police officers out there, I want you to really pay attention to this, because I think it's something we need to talk to managers of these complexes to try to get them to get the signage so it's very clear to medical personnel or police when we're responding to situations like this where seconds count. I pulled in, Dean, and the number that was given to me where the incident was occurring, it wasn't readily apparent exactly where to go. And by fortune, I took a right, which was the right way to go. And it was a total guess.
You just kind of went by feel, right? Like you just kind of let the situation guide you.
I looked at the initial numbers and, I'm not a big religious person. I'm someone that you usually would find me in a church for a wedding or a funeral. But I think something else was in play that day. I'll put a couple of the facts that I experienced. I actually spoke to my mom's pastor and said to him that a word I've used over the last year and a half describing this incident was divine intervention. And I have to say that if people of faith, and even myself, I had faith, maybe newfound faith, but I think there was some type of divine intervention. And I'll point out those points. But yeah, I think that played a role in me taking a right, and then I was taking a left up a hill. Again, it was the right way to go, unbeknownst to me.
So that brings us to the next point. So now you found this general area where this is going on. What do you see when you pull up on scene to the general area?
So again, I'm in the general area, but what I hear as I'm starting up this hill in the complex, I now get as if you don't have enough pressure on you and you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. Just again, wanting to, the thing I have described to people is wanting to get into the arena to make a difference. I'm like, give me an opportunity to do what I was trained to do, to intervene. And just give me a minute here.
We're with you, brother. Take your time.
So the next thing I hear on the radio is the suspect is trying to break through a glass door with a weight. I know these units. I know the back doors are sliding glass doors. So now the pressure's on. And what I don't realize is as I'm driving by the would-be apartment, which I don't know. And I'm looking to my right, looking for a man trying to break through a glass window. What I don't know as he's already broken through and continued his attack. And
it's all right, JK. It's all right.
I get to the top of the complex and it was a decision to go to the opposite side of the complex, which didn't make sense. And it didn't even really make sense to go back the way I came, but for some reason I went back the way I came. And when I did, I happened to see a maintenance person, I believe the only one working that day, that I've never seen when I've been in that complex, but happened to be walking across, turns out right in front of the building. And I stopped. I gave him the number I was looking for the apartment, and he pointed towards the building and said, "It's here." And I literally ran up like 10 feet. I was now still at the driveway, and I looked, and as I did, I saw a group of about 5 or 6 people had just come out the door of the neighbor's apartment. And I could hear them yelling, "He's stabbing her, he's stabbing her." And I see the suspect as they're saying that. I run up to the situation. I'm probably 30 feet away, so I'm trying to close distance. And I see him stab her.
You saw him?
Saw him stab her in the chest. He's pressed against her. And there was probably, I say 3, maybe there was more, but I believe about 3 spectators that were trying to intervene. And I remember closing distance, and just to give people a sense of the time frame, when they came out that door to where I saw what was going on, there's 8 to 10 seconds until my first shot is fired. So I run up. I'm probably, I would say, 7 to 10 feet away. Dean, you know how we train, we're shooting at metal targets or paper, and we try to simulate a scenario like this and try to have sirens going or lights to simulate the craziness. And this was just a situation that was just like worst case scenario, because the distance, I realized immediately. I told him 3 times to drop his weapon, and he was not listening to me. He never looked at me. He was looking straight through her. I described to people that I saw evil that day. And it was readily apparent to me there was no reasonable alternative. It was that situation you trained and prepared for throughout your career. There was no reasonable alternative. I realized that it was her life, or I needed to take measures to stop the attack. I knew I was going to have to shoot him and use my service weapon for the first time in my career. So I looked at the backdrop. I saw the people. I looked at my window that had to try to make my shots. And it was just it was probably a 6-inch window. It was just a terrible situation. And at some point, and I didn't know this initially, I learned it through the investigation. And it's because he opened himself up and made himself more of a target. I didn't understand why, again, from my initial recollection, but from talking to troopers afterward that investigated the incident, they shed a light. I guess I said there was a person right behind him, and I told him, I go, get back. And when I did, the suspect opened his body up, and I was able to let 4 rounds go as he continued to run probably 10 or 15 feet to my right. And fortunately, all 4 rounds hit him. He fell to the ground. And it was at that point I realized he had 2 knives in his hands, and he had also been stabbing her in the back, which I didn't realize initially.
JK, again, just to continue to paint the picture here, if I would. Now, you said he ran. Now, was he running towards you, away from you? What direction was he running?
So again, he's probably 7 to 10 feet away. He's probably, as I'm looking at this camera, he's now, when he opened himself up, the initial shots are fired, and he continues to run to the right-hand side. I think at that point, he realized, I think he was trying to flee and realized, he's got a knife, I had a gun. And I don't know where the first shots hit or how the bullets hit. And I've watched some videos over the years, and people have asked me, why do police officers shoot so many times? Why can't you shoot them in the leg? And I'm trying to, and I hope effectively paint the scenario that it is not that easy. It's easy to second guess a Monday morning quarterback and wonder why. And I had never been in a shooting. And sometimes I've asked myself that question. Why'd they shoot him 5 times or 6 times? This person was in an absolute rage. They were in a psychotic state. They were intent on doing what he was intending to do. He was intending to kill that woman. And shooting him 4 times, 2 of them, I learned later, were I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it, but they were kill shots that they hit vital organs that they ultimately let him meet his demise medically. The other shot, one was in the shoulder, two were in the chest again, at center mass, and one was in the stomach, but he didn't drop for 10 or 15 feet as he ran, and even when he landed on his back, I remember I was standing again with some distance, probably 7-10 feet away, order him to drop his knife, and he did in his right hand, so he was still responsive. I remember then seeing the knife in his left hand, and I said, drop that knife, and then I noticed his eyes roll back in his head. He didn't respond to that, so I realized that he probably wasn't in control of his body anymore. I noticed a bullet hole, which I'd never seen, in his shoulder. But you're not, as the gravity of the things I'm telling you, firing shots or seeing someone with a bullet hole with knives, you don't feel the effects of that, Dean. You're doing what you're trained to do. You're in professional mode. It's like business at hand. Let's get it done. I kicked the knife out of his second hand. I knew immediately I had to cuff him to make sure he wasn't a threat anymore, and cuffed him up.
I'm blown away, JK. I just want to take a second here and just talk about the power of you sharing this. We have a gentleman who's watched a couple of shows. Jim will just want to say that he knows, and he'll think about his OIS. And for those of you at home, OIS is Officer Involved Shooting Shift, and he thinks about it every day as well. He went on to say that he thanks you for sharing your story with people, so that they may have a better understanding of what the totality of the experience really is. And I echo that sentiment, JK. This is unbelievable what you're sharing with us tonight, and I thank you for that. So from there, you make a radio transmission. I don't even realize if you know what you did. I think I have it here. I'm going to try to play this. So stand by.
Coming off East Main, take a right, come up the hill. Suspect appears to be deceased. Female's going to stop. With chop.
All right. So I know it might have been a little difficult to hear there.
So that the one that you played is my final transmission. There was one right after the incident. And again, Dean, this goes to, it's one thing I've tried to share with every police officer that wants to hear the story, because I think there's definitely lessons to be learned. Again, I couldn't thank my instructors over the years, from academy instructors to DT instructors and mentors over the course of my career that prepared me mentally and physically to deal with what I dealt with. My body, my mind, my thinking, I was in cruise control because of all that training and many, many years of experience. And I can't thank those people enough. A few things I want to get out too. It's the most humbling experience that I've ever probably will feel. I felt in my life until this point, and I can't see anything humbling me anymore. And gratitude is the second thing. Again, for all that training, all the experience that prepared me for worst case scenario, split second decision moment, and fortunately, bullet placement in the right, to stop the suspect, not hit any of the bystanders, that poor victim, survivor. I want to make sure everybody knows there was a number of people that played a role that day, and not just me. I've been acknowledged many times. I was acknowledged with Medal of Valor. It was a great ceremony put on by my chief, my deputy, my lieutenant, my PD. I was so humbled. And it gives me an opportunity to thank the unsung heroes, the communications people, Pam Orlando, Mary Ann Silva, and Dean, you've heard the call.
The dispatchers were phenomenal. I hope they're watching. They were unbelievable how calm they stayed.
Just unbelievable under extreme circumstances. They were calm. You hear their voices when you hear the 911 caller saying, shots fired, or he says, he's been shot. And you can hear the voice. I think it was Mary Ann. We know each other. We've worked with each other for years, saying, who's been shot? And you can hear the emotion in her voice realizing there's nothing she could do but listen to an event that she's not in control of. And they have to go through that emotion. It's an unsung job. It's, those poor dispatchers they're beaten up by, not by me, by a lot of the police officers. We're always critiquing them. We want things a certain way, but they really do a phenomenal job. And especially in this case, under extreme pressure. Again, thanks goes out to that female survivor. Had she not created a ruse, had she not escaped, had she not created distance and fought this guy off, had those neighbors not been home, which a lot of people weren't during the day, had they not been home and allowed her to seek refuge, putting themselves at grave risk for doing so, there wouldn't have been an opportunity for me, Dean, to do my job and do what I was trained to do.
That's amazing, John. So talk about the transition from warrior to now you're healthcare provider at that point. So you're providing care after the incident. Talk about that a little bit.
So when he secured, Dean, as you can imagine, it's such that the situation, I literally, once I knew he was down, once I knew he was handcuffed and no longer a threat, I kicked the knives away from him. In hindsight, I probably should have taken him, but it's just, everything's happening so quick. I didn't know if he'd still get up. It didn't appear he would, but I don't know. I immediately was thinking, where is this poor woman? I ran. She was probably, I'd say 20, 25 feet away between where he went down and my cruiser. I immediately went to my cruiser, got my medical bag. She had, I believe, was a face cloth over her wounds on her chest, trying to control the bleeding. At that point, I realized that was probably best option to control the bleeding. I assessed the wound. I made that radio call that you played earlier, trying to direct the ambulance when they came in to where we were and what had happened. I think it was probably a few seconds after I had assessed her wounds, and was basically, I've told people I was trying to coach her up. She had some very serious wounds. I won't get into the specifics of it, but not only to her chest, but also her back. And I just said to her, you're going to be okay. I know my fire department. I've worked with those guys for years. I'm sure I'm biased, but I've said if I was ever hurt or needed medical care, I would drag myself over the town line into Westboro because they're the best of the best. And I knew if anyone was going to be able to treat her and keep her alive, it was them. And they were there. People, again, they've asked how long. I'm like, it just seemed like minutes. I mean, it's like, I don't know if they were already en route around the corner. But I remember seeing them rolling in the first bus, we'll call it. And they started unloading the first stretcher. And again, my adrenaline's pumping. And while I'm telling her, you're okay, you're going to be okay, the ambulance will be here. As they got there, I picked her up and I ran her 20 feet over. And before they could I think the stretcher just came out, threw in the stretcher. And I think, I was probably shook up the EMT or paramedic. I'm like, get this thing going, and it was just, you're going 100 miles an hour. And you're like, you just are trying to sustain life. And your thought process is, let's go. We don't have time. Get her going. And
I think they get it. I think that you were probably amped up and maybe a little more colorful language in what you just described there.
I think so. I think
they get it.
A few words that I try not to when I'm working, but a few of them slipped out. And the next thing I remember, there was people, I believe one of the police officers and the second unit was over at the suspect, and I saw him doing CPR on him. And again, for people that aren't police officers, we're trained to go into, yes, I'm going to take care of the victim first and provide medical aid to her. But once she was sustained in the ambulance, the next focus was now the suspect, because now we have an obligation to make sure he's okay. As deviant as he was, as psychotic as he was, knowing, and he had the intent to me to kill her. It didn't matter. At that point, he was still a victim. Now we got to go to caretaker mode. And those paramedics were on him. I think maybe they uncuffed him and were doing CPR. I know they were doing CPR. I'm pretty sure he was uncuffed, but I can't say for sure. And they loaded him on a bus and got him out just as quickly.
It's important that people say that, JK, I just want to interrupt. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that they also rendered aid to the suspect at this point too. This wasn't just a, hey, you got what you deserved and lay there and bleed out. They immediately rendered aid because, again, preservation of life is paramount. Correct, JK?
That's correct. It's Dean, it's not, I say it and I try, sometimes I'm saying things and it probably sounds so simple. And honestly, in those circumstances, because of the training, it's not like you had to think about it. It's like you cuff them up, you take care of her, you get her on the ambulance. And the next thing is now we're going to take care of this guy. If we can provide CPR and keep him alive, then that's our job, despite what his actions were before. I didn't go into work that day, Dean, as police officers involved in violent encounters or a fatal encounter like this. You don't go into work to hurt somebody. We want to talk our way through every situation that's potentially violent or volatile, which 99% of the time we can. This was one of those situations, as I described it, that it rapidly evolved so quickly that there was no time to de-escalate. There was no reasonable alternative to reach to. It was a deadly force situation no police officer wants to face, but fortunately, we receive extensive training throughout our careers to face it. And fortunately, I faced it with a positive outcome, as positive it could be, because of all that training. By the way, those weren't tears earlier. I have bad allergies, so they may kick up at different portions in the show. Hi, Mom. I see my mom's online here. I said hi to my mom. I see her checking in.
All right, so let's hit the chat. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions for JK out there? Let's go ahead and bring that up. It's been, so there's one question. How has life been, or what has life been like after an OIS?
So, people, again, there's a number of questions that come up all the time by people. And I don't know if they feel awkward asking them, but they shouldn't, because there's a number of questions. And that's one of the reasons I want to be here, to answer some of those things for police and for non-police. The stress of the whole situation, I have to be honest with you, Dean, is number one, even though I know how this story ends, that woman survived. In case I haven't made that clear, she survived after suffering some very serious injuries. And it was because of the paramedics that rendered her their A+ aid from the scene to the hospital, and to the unbelievable staff at UMass that kept her alive and sustained her. So, I mean, it could have gone the other way, and she just had such unbelievable people taking care of her. So it's thinking about what she went through and watching someone fighting for their life and just watching evil. That gets to me, and that's part of the stress of it. So over the course of the last year and a half, there's times I'm driving or sitting at home and I get teared up or start crying. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, how this story ends. She survived. And I wonder how her life is now and how she moves forward. And it bothers you. I'm a human being that happened to wear a uniform for 32 years, but that didn't define everything that I was. I'm a person, I'm a son, I'm a brother. I'm someone that brings a lot of compassion and empathy. I brought to my career, to many difficult situations and people that needed it. And so that is difficult to deal with. I still think about it every day. Another thing that's overwhelming is the recognition. So sometimes, our profession could be a thankless job, and that's okay. We don't do this for a pat on the back. So when you get a thank you, or you did a great job, or you're at a place, someone buys you a coffee or says thank you for your service, it is so appreciated. It seems like small words, but we really do appreciate it. But when you have an incident like this, and I tell you, this is probably the most overwhelming thing, is the overwhelming support and people saying, thank you, God bless you, you're a hero, you saved her life.
You sure did.
But Dean, I can tell you that maybe at some point in my career, and other police officers think those are words that they want to hear. A hero, you saved someone's life. And while I feel very fortunate, and I'm so glad that, yes, her life was saved, I don't look at myself like that. I really don't. I don't say that to minimize what I did. I feel like I'm a dedicated professional police officer, like many that I have worked with. And I go in every day to try to do a good job, or I did. I don't feel like a hero. You don't feel deserving of that recognition. And that would bring me to tears every time you hear it. And I was recognized again, I told you, a great ceremony put on my department. It was a Medal of Valor ceremony. And some people asked, did the medal, was it about the medal? I'm like, no, it wasn't about the medal. The medal's never left my dress uniform that remains in my locker. And it may never will. It wasn't about the medal. It was giving me an opportunity. That day gave me an opportunity to thank a number of people that influenced me in my career, influenced what happened that day, to thank them and to try to bring closure, to the roller coaster of emotions that I still deal with. And I'm thankful for that ceremony, but that's what it was about. Police officers do not do things for medals. We don't do things to get a pat on the back, although it's nice every once in a while. That's not why you put on the uniform. And when you see, and Dean, you've been to many, I'm sure, police funerals over the years. When you see a police officer, we realize that when we go to work every day, we go to work to hopefully come home, but we are willing to lay everything down for people that we don't even know, that may not even like us. And it's just now, as a retired person, I look at police officers when I see them and have so much respect for them. It's almost like I'm not one of them anymore. I'm not. But I look at them and I know what they're willing to do and the risks that they take and the emotion that goes into it, letting someone know a family member is not coming home, dealing with the number of death scenes that we deal with, dealing with difficult family situations where kids in situations with parents with addiction or abuse. And those are the stresses of the job that you go home with, because we empathize. A good police officer feels these situations. You take them into your heart and you go home at the end of the day. And sometimes you're just shaking your head saying, I am so fortunate, the life that I have. And you just think about the very difficult circumstances that a lot of people that we deal with have. That's the stress of the job.
Well, John, I'm going to clarify a couple things. First of all, you are a hero. And I know it might be embarrassing to you to hear that, but you are the definition of a hero. You acted, you saved a life. Someone is alive on today, and they are living their life however that life is going, but that life is happening because of you, the actions you took. It's important you realize that. That is...
Again, Dean, I thank you as I think every law enforcement person that reached out to me, every friend, teachers, family members, and everyone says those words. And I haven't really spoken to anybody else that's been in a similar situation to know how they feel, because it's uncharted waters for me. I just know, it is so humbling, and to be acknowledged. And I have some future things, ceremonies I'm going to be acknowledged for. It's going to be just as humbling, and their words that it's almost like I'm reading a script, because I say the same things all the time. If you said the two big things I feel after this event, I feel grateful for training. I feel grateful for everybody that assisted that day and allowed me to do my job. And I am so humbled by the way things turned out and all the recognition that I received. And I say that as sincerely as I possibly can.
And the second thing, JK, is you're absolutely still a cop. You're always a cop. You're always going to be part of this family. Anybody who puts in the type of time that you put in is always part of this family, and you're always part of the fabric that makes being a police officer such a great and noble profession. And you sharing this story, hopefully there's people out there. I'm hoping there's more people in the audience that are not police officers than are police officers, because a lot of us, we know this. We know that nobody comes to work and their goal is to take someone's life. Obviously I can't say nobody, but the overwhelming majority of the majority don't want to do that. It goes just like you said, like you had a plan. You had your roll call. You kept it light. You were happy to see people. You had a plan in your head, people you wanted to see, businesses you wanted to visit, things you wanted to eat. Like that's how most of us think about their day. We have things that are going on at home, bills that have to be paid. Some of us that have kids, we're thinking about that. So it's important that people understand that this was not your plan.
No, I mean, really, I mean, Dean, I went in every day, and I think most police officers have the same mentality. When we say we serve and protect, again, it just sounds so simple, but we do. And, to me, I'll elaborate on that and say every single day, every time I had that uniform on throughout my career, I'm a very social person. So it gave me an opportunity to build a bridge, to make a friend, to build a relationship with someone. There was sometimes I would, I engage people that I don't know in that uniform. It's one thing that's helpful about the uniform. You could talk to anybody. And sometimes people were surprised that you'd say something to them. And I would see people kind of looking at me like maybe they weren't big fans of the police, but there's been many people I've met, not just on the job, but off the job, when I told them I was a police officer in other states on vacation. And I shared what I was and what the type of person I was. And they might say to me later, which I felt great about, you know what? I didn't really like the police until I met you. And now I have a different attitude. And it was one of the things I did throughout my career, Dean, and will continue to do, is to promote the profession. We obviously don't want to see negative things happen with the police and bad cops. Nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. We don't condone any bad behavior or abuse or any racial injustice. It just isn't supported. If it was, I would have done something a long time ago. We're regular people that go out to do a good job, to try to, again, serve people in the many different things that people need. I feel like I was a professional problem solver, try to be a great listener, someone that didn't have all the answers to people's problems. But over the course of your career, you don't have all the answers. Even as a supervisor, I didn't have all the laws in my head. And a lot of times I was reached to people that just came out of the academy for those things. But what I did have is, you learn good common sense. You learn treat people as you want to be treated. As simple as that sounds, it's just the way I always approach my career. I approached people and spoke to people like that was a friend or that was my family member in another community. How would I want them to be spoken to by the police? And it was try to enhance the life experience for all the different people that we deal with. And it's the type of profession, Dean, as I think you would attest to. If you love people, and I mean, not just people without problems, because we deal with a lot of people that come from difficult circumstances. If you love people of all walks of life, of all colors, of all, different backgrounds, and can empathize with people, and you can build a bridge and you care enough to do that with people, this is the ultimate profession to do that. It's the ultimate profession. If you don't like people or you don't like dealing with difficult situations, do not get into this profession because it's not for you.
So, JK, really quick, Jim was the gentleman that spoke earlier about his OIS, and he just wants to say if you ever want to meet for coffee and compare notes, he'll meet with you. I'm not too far from you. So, Jim, you can certainly send us a PM or a DM or whatever you call it here at Supply the Y, and we can certainly broker that introduction. And I think that's a fantastic idea. And that goes for anybody else out there that has any kind of stressful incident. If you need to talk, we can certainly point you in the right direction, or even you can reach out to us and we can make something happen. Maybe even put together a private Zoom that's not open to the public so people can kind of share some stories and meet, because I do think that we need to support one another. We're better than we used to be, but we're not quite where we need to be as an industry yet. So, Jim, thank you for throwing that out there. JK, any thoughts on that?
No, thank you, Jim. Again, I've never spoken with anybody else that's been involved in the same incident. Probably helped to do that. I just want to mention that because I think I failed to do that over the course of the time speaking. But my department couldn't have been more supportive of me after the incident. And even to this day, I still feel like a member of the family. I don't feel like, I'm retired when I walk in and see everybody from the chief down to the custodial staff that takes care of the building. Everybody's been wonderful. They offered me, stress counselors right away. I spoke to a few different people, over the past year and a half that were very helpful. And I appreciate them taking the time to do that. My department continues to be there for me today. That day, again, after the incident, my deputy chief arrived and I knew I had to relinquish my firearm. That was part of something I knew was going to have to happen. He immediately took control of the scene. It was like just calmness. I mean, it was, just told everybody what to do, crime scene tape, kind of was trying to bring me down a little bit, which was not easy to do. I stripped my gun belt off, gave it to him. I ended up getting transported to UMass. Another thing I didn't mention, the adrenaline. I remember going in, and they took my blood pressure, which is pretty normal, and I think it was probably like 130 over 180. The doctor said to me, she goes, "Hey, your blood pressure's high," and I said, "Yeah, well, it's probably the incident and if you say it's high again, it's probably going to get higher. I'm probably going to drop." But it was.
And you're a fit guy. You're a very fit guy too. So it's not like.
No, it's just your body does something. My body had never reacted like that before. I'm right-handed, but my left hand, it shook, I think, for like 3 hours. I think it was just the adrenaline in my body that it took hours to go away. So it was never felt it before.
JK, this has just been an amazing account of something that again, it's just not talked about. People need to understand what this is like for people that have to make the kind of decision and take the type of action you did. So we're down to about 4 minutes. Tell us, do you have anything? What are you doing in your retirement? What are your plans? What causes are important to you?
So it's been a couple months, Dean. I wanted most people that retired, whether from the police profession or other professions, they said, just take some time, figure out what you want to do. And I've done that. I get put on as a reserve officer. I've worked a few details. I'm trying to get involved in training with the MPTC. I'd like to impart some of my knowledge to try to shape future police officers coming up through the ranks, try to help them learn from things that I've learned over the course of my career to help them. And, also, like I said, my mom, she needs my attention, and I'm happy to do it. She's a wonderful lady and quite the personality. I try to get her out on the boat. I'm fortunate to live on a lake, so I've spent some time there. I've been trying to, again, spend some time at the gym, keep my body going. As you get older, it doesn't get any easier. So I've taken.
It doesn't.
Yeah. So I've just been focused on trying on my wellness to try to, get in shape, eat properly, take care of mom, try to just take a step back again. Dean, I can't tell you, for police officers that have retired or on the verge of retiring, I can tell them they will probably never look back, as much as it's a dream career. But to know you never have to strap on that 25-pound belt and deal with all the difficult calls that we have to deal with. And your life is your own when you wake up. There aren't too many Netflix movies or series I haven't seen. I think in the last 2 months, I think I may have covered everything good on Netflix. But it's really been low stress. I can't thank all my friends, my family around me that supported me, that are here tonight, that have taken the time to listen and to share their support. It's a difficult thing to speak about. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I'll probably never be able to speak about it and be tear-free, because you put your life, all your emotion into everything that you do. And when it's something of this magnitude, Dean, it will never go away. So as much as I enjoy sharing the experience to try to open people's eyes to certain things or let them know that the humanness that police officers have that they may not see, they drive by us with our sunglasses on and intimidating uniforms with the gun belt and all the different things on our belt that we hope we never have to use. We hope we can talk ourselves through every situation with verbal judo. We're just regular people. I mean, anybody that knows me, they know what I stand for. They know I'm out there for everybody.
It's like I said, JK, you're incredible. I'm so thankful to have this platform, because without it, I wouldn't have met you. Like you and I have never met before. It's important that people know, you're in Central Mass. I'm in Eastern Mass. We're in different parts of my career. I'm in my 17th year. You were in your 31st year. And I'm honored. I just want to tell you how much you've honored me, that you chose this platform to be the one that you to share your story with everybody. That just you honor me with your presence, John, and it's important that you know that. And I hope everybody out there that's watching this appreciates this. I'm so humbled, and I'm just so thankful for people like you.
No, I appreciate you having me, Dean, and I do at some point. We will meet for coffee, and I'll tell you why I came
Coffee?
on. Yeah, okay. We'll meet up in person, coffee.
Okay.
But I will just. I know we're probably short on time, but I saw a couple of legends on this show: Chuck DeChara, the DT guru of Massachusetts, a kid that is as humble as they come, that is highly trained. His most deadly thing that he knows is his words. Absolute master of verbal judo. And the other legend, Dean Crisp. I think I'm a talker. I'm an absolute mute when it comes to Dean. You listen to him, he sounds like Tony Robbins. He's a lot like my chief. My chief is very charismatic, very well spoken. You hear him. It's they're just incredible speakers. And when I saw him on your show, I saw you. I saw the passion that you showed. I said that's the form I would love to speak about this event on.
Oh, again, I can't thank you enough. I hope everybody out there appreciates this unbelievable peek behind the curtain that you just don't get very often. And I hope people understand and they appreciate John putting himself out there and him being willing to humanize his experience just so everybody can just get a little bit more of an understanding of what it's like to be in these situations. So, John, thank you again for taking the time out to do this. It's been an honor, and promise me you'll come back at some point in the future and we can talk more about the state of policing or anything else, or even what it's like to be retired. There's a lot of cops out there that would love to know more about what that's like, because I think we all aspire to get to where you're at. Absolutely, Dean. Again, thank you very much for having me. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you've learned something tonight. Much appreciated. Thank you for the forum to be able to have the opportunity to speak about the event. Absolutely. One last thing, please give your mother our love. All of us out there in the Supply the Why family, we are pulling for your mother, and we hope for her to be as comfortable as possible and for her to have the best possible time left. We want it to be as comfortable as possible. I appreciate that very much. I know she does too. And I just want to give a shout out to the Rose Monahan staff that takes care of her in Worcester. They treat her like it's their mother, and she's in great hands. And I can't recommend that place anymore. It's an absolute godsend. All right, folks. Well, we've reached the end. Again, thank you for putting up with some of the difficulties that we've had tonight. It's one of those things where we try to hammer it out as best we can, but we thank everybody for sticking with us. Keep tuning in. Keep sharing these episodes. If you like the content, see below. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We are on all the major podcast channels. Keep sharing. Keep liking. And as always, #SupplyTheWhy. We appreciate you. Have a good night.